Hello, everyone, and welcome back to COD Banter. Backlog Banter's retrospective of the COD series. One per month, we're going to be tackling the Call of Duty series in order. I'm Tucker Hazel and joined by my co-host, Sergeant Dan. Thank you for joining me again, Daniel. Fantastic to have you. Daniel, excuse me. I don't want to get that wrong. But today we're talking about Call of Duty 3, which is the first mainline game in the series developed by Treyarch. I believe they also did Call of Duty 2 Big Red 1, the PS2 version. But this game released in 2006, and it doesn't get talked about very much. And I feel like that's because it got overshadowed the next year by Modern Warfare, as of course we'll get to next month. But I've got mixed feelings on this one. I'm excited to sort of dive into it. What about you?
I think this is a pretty step up, and I think there's a lot to like here. I have some minor critiques of the game, but I think overall this is very, very solid Call of Duty. I mean, I think it just keeps improving for the most part.
Yeah, it's definitely a game where you can feel what direction they're trending. This is the first game out of the three that we've played that trends towards more linear storytelling, more involved cutscenes, more involved characters, as we'll get into, which I think is,
for sure,
is categorically the best aspect of this game in terms of being a step up. But it's also a game that I feel is very much hindered by going back to it, because this is the first game that I played on PS3. I played 1 and 2 both through Steam on my computer, and they're higher resolution. They run a lot better. This game, playing it on PS3 hardware, was really rough, frankly. I had a very hard time playing this game, not in terms of difficulty or things like that, but really choppy frame rate, really low quality visuals. Even though the environments are very detailed, it can get a little bit tough to pick out enemies. Like, I had a lot of jank in this game. This game just janked to the nth degree, and it really hindered a lot of my enjoyment because I was just having to slog through low frame rate and all this stuff because, Treyarch didn't know what they were doing in developing for the PS3. Frankly, no one did when that system first came out, and this was a launch game, I believe.
Still?
I'm just kidding. Yeah, that's a good point. But did you have any frame rate issues, performance, visuals, stuff like that? How did you play the game?
Now I played one. Did I play 2 on Xbox? I think I played 2 on Xbox. So I played 1 on PC. I played 2 on Xbox, and I played this one on Xbox. All digital. Okay. On my Series X. I've had no real issue. There might be some little graphical issues, but I think that's the game. I don't really think the console has much to do with that.
Yeah, I think probably the performance being better is what your console being a newer console, being a digital game, all this stuff. I'm playing on a PS3 with a disc and with the
a lot of moving parts.
PS3 controller. Yeah, it definitely wasn't the best performing game I've played, and I kept finding myself very frustrated by things that I think maybe some of those elements were not directly performance that you might have also experienced as well. Just sort of getting through a couple of my negative points here. Sure. I had a really weird time with environmental collision in this game. Like, if there's a helmet or a plank or like a door on the ground, my character would get stuck on it a lot. And that combined with the just categorically terrible friendly AI, your buddy soldiers are just like, they'll just stop in the middle of the doorway and you can't get around them. And
they're always doing that, especially in this one. I've noticed always in the doorways.
Exactly. And that's combined with that weird collision where sometimes you're like, I just want to get around you so I can get to where I want to go. Yeah, but I found that pretty frustrating.
Yeah, I guess we're gonna do minor gripes. One minor gripe that I had was the field of view of the guns. The guns were a little too big compared to 1 and 2.
Sure.
And it was noticeable for me. I'm not one that really cares too much about FOV. I play Halo. I'm a Halo guy. That's my bread and butter. Halo's huge FOV. All the guns are huge in your hands, but this game, it really noticed, especially going from 1 to 2. I'm like, wow, like my MP40 is gigantic,
just taking up a lot of screen real estate. Yeah. I can't say I noticed that personally, but you could be right. I guess I don't play enough first person shooters to care that much. Like, I'm not as in tune to the size of the gun, but yeah, I can see that being a problem, though. I didn't really notice it personally.
It wasn't too much of an issue. It was just something that really stuck out to me, that the guns were much bigger. Also, the checkpointing, spotty checkpointing compared to 2. Yeah. I thought 2 was a huge improvement over 1, and then this feels like a slight step down.
I
from 2.
definitely agree. I mean, the checkpointing is very consistent, and one thing I definitely appreciate is it, big green letters at the top of the screen, checkpoint unlocked. Like you reach the next checkpoint, it tells you when it's saving. Like I never felt like I didn't know when I was going to save, and it's pretty obvious in terms of the linearity of these levels. Like you're gonna kill the guys, you're gonna blow up the thing, and it's gonna be a checkpoint. But they're pretty spaced out, so you'd
Yeah.
find yourself going through a couple of layers of a level, knocking out a few groups of guys. And if you just get picked off or overwhelmed, got to go through all that again. I definitely found myself, much like Call of Duty 1, I didn't have this problem as much in 2, which I think had a lot more consistent checkpointing. Just like, God damn it, I have to see these guys again. I know exactly where they're going to show up. So I got to just go through the motions. If it ended up getting overwhelming, which it did quite a few times for me. I think part of that was the performance. The low frame rate made it very hard for me to react to situations. And also, this was my first time playing one of these games on a controller. As I said, I played 1 and 2 on PC. And I find first-person controls much easier with a mouse and keyboard personally. So I had a hard time aiming, even with the reasonably generous auto aim that they have.
It was pretty heavy in this game.
Yeah. I found myself getting overwhelmed very easily because they put a lot of guys on the screen here for you to fight.
Oh yeah, I mean we're getting to the point when tech is getting better and they can actually do way more with these battles. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you're gonna see a lot more bigger open areas, more enemies, stuff like that. Like I don't want to too many spoilers. There are some games that have just endless ways until you do stuff, and it's just I don't like that at all. But yeah, I didn't have too many issues in general with the game in terms of playing though.
Now the final thing, and I think this is one of the more classic elements of COD 3, is that this is the game that introduced Quicktime Events to the franchise, and especially on PS3, they are really obnoxious. They are all 6-axis control, and 6-axis controls, and for you on Xbox, I believe it was buttons.
It's the triggers or buttons, yeah.
But for PS3, early PS3 game, 6-axis hardware is the new thing. We got to have motion controls. You'll be walking down a hallway.
So are you doing this?
Yeah. You're doing this. You're doing up and down. You're doing forward and back. And it's like they have these little prompts on the screen that shows like arrows going around the controller, but you can't really tell sometimes what direction you're supposed to like move the controller in to make it work. And especially when you're planting a bomb, which you do like 15 times in this game. I got to go like this. You got to rotate the controller to like.
I felt like even with a stick, it wouldn't work very well. I just felt like it wasn't implemented as well as it could have been.
And the most egregious one was the rowing section, which only happens once.
I completely forgot about the rowing section.
But your guy has to get in a boat and row across a not very long river, or not very wide river, but the boat only moves if you do the QuickTime event correctly. And for me, that means rotating controller in the way that it wants me to. And I can't really tell what the prompt's telling me on screen. So I'm like, what the hell am I supposed to do? And I'm just moving the controller around, trying to get my guy to row across the river. So annoying.
Even with the sticks, it was not fun. I completely blocked that out of my memory after I did it. I did not remember that stupid rowing section. Oh my God. Yeah, that was awful. That was probably the worst part of the game. Now that I remember.
It was like only lasted like 45 seconds to a minute or whatever, but it's just like, are you kidding me, guys? Come on, you can do this better.
Not good. Not good. The characters, I do want to talk about the characters.
Yeah, sure.
They definitely put some more work into that. Like I think that it took a step from 1 to 2, and they just try to have more characters, have more of a group, and then this even more so. You have a different groups. You have like the Polish group, the French group, the American group, the British
and
group.
the Canadians, I believe.
And the Canadians.
American, British, Canadian, Polish are the 4 groups in this. Over a course of 14 missions. And one thing that I do think makes this game a step up is that all 4 of the different groups that you take control of throughout are all reasonably fleshed out groups. I think there's a little bit of variance in how engaging I found the different groups and characters to be, which is to be expected. I know I'm not going to complain about that. But is that the missions over the course of 14 missions aren't chunked up into, okay, now you're going to play through the Polish missions 1, 2, 3. Now you're going to play through the Canadian missions 1, 2, 3. They're American, Polish, Canadian, French, American,
French,
bouncing around, Canadian, whatever. It really allows it to feel like you're approaching it from a lot of different angles. And there's a couple instances, not as much as I would have wanted, but a couple instances where the storylines and characters overlap a little bit. Near the end, one of the guys from the Canadian group, who is their radio guy, shows up to help the Polish soldiers defend a
is
hill.
that Guzzo?
No,
it
was it started with a B.
He's the radio guy.
Baron. Yeah,
okay.
he showed up to help the Polish ones. And, of course, it's a game. These are the characters. I was kind of surprised to see there be even that amount of overlap. And I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. I really like the French section, the French in the British. That was probably the better storyline for me. I like the antagonistic relationship between the British and the French.
The French resistance and the guys that are helping them, and they just have a great group personality. I mean, there's the female soldier, there's the really snarky French guy, they've got like a Scottish guy on there, and they're all like, they don't really like each other. No. And it's kind of fun to just be like, all right, guys, calm down, we got to get through this. And it definitely made exactly, yeah, because at the end of the day, all these characters realize, well, we got to put aside our differences and fight through the war. And it makes going through these environments, which I do want to talk about a little bit, the variety of this game, because it is certainly lacking a little bit in comparison to 2 especially.
Yeah.
But
I mean, even to 1, I think.
Personally. To both of them. But I don't necessarily think that's a huge issue, because I'm a lot more engaged with going through these areas, because I've got characters alongside me who have names and consistent and character arcs, and there are story moments, and they have. It's not the greatest amount of character development and relationships and stuff, but it's there, and that's a big step up from 1 and 2.
Definitely. What really got me, what brings all that together, I think, is the cutscenes. I know we already kind of talked about the cutscenes, but I think the narrative really pulls most of the game forward. When you don't really need, if you're telling a good story with good characters, you don't necessarily need to have bombastic things all the time. You're already fighting. There's already explosions all the time anyways. You don't need big things you're doing. You don't need to always have tank missions. I know that they really still feel like they have to have a tank mission. Seems like every game so far.
There hasn't been one without it.
Yeah, there hasn't been one without it. And it's not really my favorite missions, but you don't necessarily need variety for it to be good, if your narrative and characters are good. And I think in that aspect, that this game is just way better than the other 2.
It definitely feels more modern. It definitely feels like, okay, and what I mentioned at the beginning, this is where the series should be trending, and I certainly think it works, because having a more cinematic story with in-game cutscenes of the characters, as opposed to something that was kind of charming in 1 and 2, but just sort of in 1 there was no cutscenes at all. It was just like diary entries from the soldiers that you're playing as, who are not nameless, but faceless and voiceless. I mean, that continues here, which is still something I kind of have an issue with, though it's not a huge problem because I've got characters to connect to here. But in 2, they had like History Channel footage playing between missions to sort of get you set up. But now you've got the group of characters saying, hey, we're going to be doing this. And some of them are kind of worried about what they're about to do. They're having conflict before and after the missions. And it definitely makes it be a lot more engaging to know where you're going and know that the people with you care in a certain way.
Yeah, definitely. I do want to bring up like some of the repetitiveness of the game. Like we already kind of talked about the QTE repetitiveness. There's a lot of the bobs you're doing. You're trying to fight the Nazi guy a lot of times. Even like just getting knocked down and like being dazed. I felt like I did that a lot in this game.
Yeah, well, especially compared to 1 and 2, which was maybe twice in each of those games. It's about every other mission here. And as well as this game has a little bit of jank, and you like transitioning from cutscene to a gameplay where they'll change the aspect ratio a little bit, and then your character will like slide to get onto the ground
into
where
position.
You can lift your gun. Yeah. So you'll be in a car and your character will like the camera will like track robotically to get where you're going. It's like, I see where you're going. You want the transition to be smooth from cutscene to gameplay, but it's just so jarring.
Yeah, I mean, it's old.
Yeah.
The game it took a long time for games to really even do that in general. So like I still think it didn't really pull me out too much personally.
The other thing I want to talk about in terms of the lack of variety for me comes mostly from the fact that it's a pro and a con because this is focused only on one set of locations. It's all in France. So you're doing missions that are all in the French countryside or in French villages almost entirely. There's basically no deviation from that. As opposed to 1 and 2, where that would only be a fourth of the game or a third of the game. And then in 2, you were in Africa and in Russia. Like there's a lot more visual variety, environmental variety. And I think it's a little bit underwhelming to just have to see the same kind of villages and like atmospheres and trees and grass and rocks over and over again here. But it all looks reasonably good. They're very detailed environments. I mean, it makes sense for the narrative that they're telling. So that's why I don't really think it's a huge thing, though I definitely noticed it coming off of 1 and 2.
Yeah. I definitely agree with the environments. I felt like I was fighting in the same buildings over and over again, the same broken down buildings. I'm running around.
Mm-hmm.
Is this the same area? I don't know. But yeah, I definitely agree. And I feel like that might be why I like 2 a little bit more, actually.
Sure. Yeah.
I really liked the Africa section.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree a lot.
Now the final thing I would want to mention, I think I've kind of gone through most of my points here, but is that what the variety of this game comes into play with is a lot of variety within the missions of, okay, now you're going to be storming some guys, you're going to be defending an area, you're going to be sniping, you're going to be doing different kind of things. And for the most part, it works. I do think there are a few instances where or quickly, I want to mention the driving sections, because this is the first game where they actually let you control a vehicle. So they've got some sort of quote unquote free roam open areas in the French countryside where you've got to make your way around a village in a car, and the driving controls are fine. They're actually surprisingly good. I've had some.
It felt fun. Yeah,
I've had some bad driving controls in games, and this wasn't one of those.
Yeah, it felt fun, and I wasn't like angry at it. It trying to like reverse and stuff wasn't great, but like it felt fun.
Mm-hmm. One thing I did like about those was you've always got your guys in the back, and they'll be like turn left or turn around, or like because it's a little bit hard to tell where you're supposed to go because the marker is just on the map, like
it's just a dot
out in the distance, and it's not telling you on the roads where to go, which is fine. I mean, I only got lost in one of the areas, and I couldn't figure out exactly where to go, and so I kind of like weaseled my way around some trucks and found how to get there. But those are actually pretty good. I'm glad that we finally got car sections. We had tanks in the past ones, and I actually don't remember if you control a tank at all in this game. Do you remember?
There's a tank section.
There's a tank section, but I'm pretty sure you're not the one controlling it.
Yeah.
Or am I wrong?
No, there is a tank section in the game.
Yeah,
but I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure you're right with a section where you're in a gunner.
Yes, exactly.
But there is a tank section. Actually, I think there might be 2.
Yeah, well, because the Polish group is a tank group. So you're doing different kinds of tank missions. I just off the top of my head can't remember if you're controlling it, but it doesn't really.
I'm pretty sure you do twice. I'm pretty sure.
But the final bit of variety, which I think categorically did not work, was the mortar sections, where you have to rotate the sticks to aim the thing, and there's no indication of where your mortar shell is going to land in the environment. So you just gotta
test it.
You just gotta try, like, oh, all right, I missed by this much to the left and this much forward. All right, let me try to put it up. Oh, it went too much, because these controls are very slippery for it. And I found those to be really obnoxious. And I really hope they don't come back, or at least I hope they're reworked, because rotating the sticks to move and aim was very confusing for me.
Yeah, they really this game might be hindered by a lot of those QuickTime event things, because it did not feel good to do that at all. They needed some sort of indication, a better indication on where you're going with it, better controls. Spinning a stick is not good. Spinning both sticks, I guess it was. They should have just move it and then move it back and forward, and that's it. Not spinning the stick.
Absolutely,
that's not good controls.
before we get to ranking this against Call of Duty 1 and 2, are there any specific moments in the game or set pieces, actions, character moments that you want to shout out that you liked?
I actually don't know if this one was as memorable with that for me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if was there any that really stuck out for you? Because for me, it was more the characters than anything.
Yeah, it was the characters in the cutscenes for the most part. Though, yeah, because there wasn't a lot of set piece moments.
Yeah.
The only one really being that sticks out to me is when you have to protect Guzzo, I believe, as he's going out to set a flare to call in an airstrike. And then he gets hurt out by the flare, and you're like, oh shit, we gotta go get him, because he's gonna be blown to bits right by the flare. So you and one of your other guys goes out and gets him, and then he's carrying him as you're going back. And it's not really something you're too involved with because your AI partner picks up Guzzo and walks him back and stuff. But the idea of that this is a character moment and you're saving the guy who you've been working with this whole time. And Guzzo, I believe, is actually the character that has the most character arc and development.
Probably the main character of the game.
Because he starts off a little bit timid and he doesn't really want to fight. And I believe it's Dixon, who's your commander in that group, ends up sort of like pushing against him. They have some conflict, but when he sacrifices himself and gets shot out by the flare, and you and I think it's Dixon goes and saves him, and then Dixon dies right after saving him. It's actually a pretty solid character moment between the two of them.
Yeah, and that's in game. That's way more Half-Life kind of character moments where you're doing it. You're not just showing another cutscene or anything, or just an explosion. You're walking right next to him as he's carrying Guzzo. Like I do like things like that, but that's not set piece, right? That is moment to moment narrative as you're doing it, And I like that type of storytelling. I love the Half-Life. Let me do it and then tell a story around me doing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's a better way to do it.
I mean, I'm sure, as we'll get to with future games, especially Modern Warfare, which I believe takes it in a little more set piece focused direction. I'm excited for there to be those set piece moments because I do think that telling stories with the characters and then having large memorable moments, which, as we said, this game is kind of lacking in. There's a few moments from the first games that stick out to me, not that many. I think on the whole, one of my biggest problems about the first three of these games is none of them are bad. I think they all have pros and cons, and on the whole, I'm very glad I played them. That you can feel the franchise growing and learning new things and trying new things, and now Treyarch's introduced to the fold. But is that we're 3 games in and we've only done World War II, and we keep going through these fucking villages that are decimated, and these and everything's like kind of gray and muddy. It's like, guys, come on. Like I had a very hard time motivating myself to play through this game, not because it was a bad game. I enjoyed my time with it, but because I just felt like I'd already seen it. And it was really the fact that I got kind of at least somewhat attuned to the characters and character moments and cutscenes. That was what pulled me through. Because otherwise, I'm like, yeah, I've done this before in COD 1 and 2.
Yeah, I think among them, if you put an amalgamation of all of them together, I feel like you make a pretty perfect like World War II game.
Yeah.
This game, this game, it definitely starts showing the fatigue because it isn't just Call of Duty that was doing World War II shooters at the time. You had Medal of Honor and Band of Brothers. I couldn't think of the name. Band of Brothers. You had other modern World War II shooters, and this does show fatigue. I don't mind the World War II because even like we went back with World War II. We went back with or even World War, then World War II, and then Vanguard. And I know some people are like, oh, why another World War II Call of Duty? I don't necessarily mind that, especially in the cycle that Call of Duty is in now. But I understand the fatigue that you have.
Yeah, it's not that bad of fatigue because, again, I still enjoyed all of these games, and I'm surprised to the extent which I've recognized their quality. It's just that I'm excited to see them try different things in different eras and see new locales and different, not the same kind of guy voicing over World War II stuff and talking about the same areas and using the same guns. Like, there definitely is a sameness here that is especially heightened by playing them like with less than a month in between each of them. And like if I had played these games when it came out and it was 2 years between 1 and 2 and a whole year between 2 and 3 or whatever it was, that would be more reasonable. But I don't mind World War II stuff. I think that these games are all good. They do a good job portraying that, but I'm kind of excited for there to be a shakeup. And so when we get to something like Call of Duty World War II, or even when we eventually get to Vanguard, it'll be kind of nice to return to the roots and say, hey, it's World War II. I don't think it's inherently a bad thing for them to want to tell World War II stories. I mean,
of course,
that can be done really well.
Yeah, it's an amazing conflict. It's a historic conflict, so it's having stories there is great. I like World War II and Vanguard, so be excited to get to that when we get to it.
Mm-hmm. In a while, but first we got to rank Call of Duty 3 against Call of Duty 2 and Call of Duty 1. I want you to start the conversation about where you want to place this. You can talk about it from the game's quality, your enjoyment, however you want to start this.
You're going to allow me to start.
Okay, yeah, of course.
Thank you. I've been wrestling with the ranking because this is probably the best part for me. I'd like to rank things.
Yeah.
We were contentious even in the first ranking because I liked 1. I hold a lot of value of Legacy, and I preferred 1. So I don't know if I like this more than 2 though. So I might have to put this at 2, above 2. That's confusing.
Wait, okay.
At number 2, above. At 2, above 1, below 2.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. And I think for me, that's actually where I'm going to land as well. So there's not going to be a huge amount of contention here. I think a lot of my enjoyment of this game was hampered by the poor performance of early PS3 hardware, and using the actual hardware of PS3 and using a disc and all this stuff and not having any modern affordances of bump up in the technology. This game doesn't run well. It doesn't look great, frankly. It has a lot of glitches, a lot of bugs, a lot of errors, and I was able to push through them, but it was pretty egregious at times. And I would have times where the frame rate would drop to 10, and my buddies in the environment would like be clipping through the environment and like vibrating up and down, and guns would float, and it was kind of a mess.
You had
recognized. I know. I recognize the quality of the game underneath that, and I know it's just the hardware I'm playing on, but this is what it was when it came out. Like, this is what people experienced at first. And it's kind of hard to let that slide. When I came off of 1 and 2, which I don't remember really having any bugs or errors with. I certainly didn't have frame rate issues, and having it cleaned up a little bit, running on PC hardware, those games actually looked surprisingly great for both of their respective eras. And this game looked good. There was a lot of environmental detail, but the PS3 does not render things in or these early games in the full HD that I want them to be in. It was kind of like I was peering through muddy nonsense, and sometimes enemies would get lost in the environment because everything was like a mixture of gray and brown, and like I think this is a good game. I'm very happy I played it because it takes the World War II concept from 1 and 2 and places it into a more modern framework with actual characters and in-game cutscenes and a more coherent story. But I can't, in good faith, put it above 2, which I think is a more consistently entertaining and interesting game.
A little more bombastic, I think.
True. Yeah, that's a great point. So yeah, the ranking.
Can I make an argument before we make it official for it to be at the bottom, just for Michael Giacchino's amazing soundtrack? And
frankly, I would not be opposed to that. Placing it below 1, I don't know if I would do that personally because
okay, that's fair.
No, but hold on. I might make a concession. I wouldn't do it personally because I like that this game at least tried to have more interesting characters and a narrative and cutscenes and that kind of thing. One of the ways that 1 felt the most antiquated outside of the checkpointing and the health packs, was that there was no characters, there was no story. I mean, you saw Captain Price once, and you're like, great, whoa, look at that! Like, but this game at least tried that, even if it didn't hit it at full marks. And I really appreciate that. But I do think that I didn't have any problems with 1 in terms of its performance and stuff. So Hey, I'll actually concede this to you, and we can put it at the bottom if you'd like.
Hey, you're gonna concede to me
Yeah.
for once.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Michael Giacchino wins.
I mean, that score is good. I do think this game actually has a good main theme.
It's pretty
Like
solid.
The menu theme that ends up playing at the end of at the menu and at the end of a couple of the missions. It's a good theme song.
I think the music might be better than 2. Overall.
I mean, yeah, I can't remember anything from 2. I might go listen to the theme song, but the composer here was Joel Goldsmith.
That sounds familiar, actually.
I've got his thing open here. Yeah, no, I'm gonna say he's probably not actually.
Oh, okay. Maybe I'm thinking
familiar. He did a couple movies. The only one I really recognize. No, actually, I don't recognize any of this.
You're the movie guy. You don't recognize this?
Have you heard of War of the Dead? No.
Have you not heard of War of the Dead?
Have you heard of Diamonds?
No.
Well, yeah. So this guy not as big a deal. I think Goldsmith is just kind of a.
It might just be the last name.
Yeah. But you know what? As it stands and as my concession goes, the ranking is now Call of Duty 2, Call of Duty 1, and unfortunately Call of Duty 3 at the bottom. Or fortunately, depending on who you are.
Yeah. It's still a good game. It's still a good game.
I mean, we haven't hit a stinker yet, and I think that's kind of impressive because I didn't expect to enjoy these games or recognize their quality much at all going into this. But we've got Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare next, and
I do want to preface something kind of when we get to this era now. Mm-hmm. Once we get to this era of Call of Duty, I know that we're kind of talking more about kind of campaigns and stuff, but this new era, like this next game's going to is a package. It's multiplayer and the campaign. Mm-hmm. And then later we get way more things. The next game you have zombies as well. Like these games become way more of a package. They're not just the campaign. So with that in mind, I don't really know if there is a stinker in terms of Call of Duty because it's a complete package. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
Well, I will be excited to step into a new era of Call of Duty with COD 4, which I think is probably the most revered of the entire series. In terms of
depends on who you ask.
Sure. Okay. Which ones else would you say are up there?
Modern Warfare 2, Black Ops 2.
Okay. All right. Well, and hey, those are all sort of coming up in succession. Yeah. So we've got a lot to look forward to. But thank you very much for everyone for watching this. I want to thank Sergeant Dan for joining me here on a Call of Duty 3 retrospective. It will no longer be just us going into the future because these games 1, 2, and 3 are not as accessible. But going forward, more people have access to these games, and especially people love to talk about Modern Warfare. So we're going to have a couple other people joining us for next month's episode. But thank you for watching. I go play Call of Duty, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, go play Modern Warfare next. Come on, Modern Warfare is legendary. Come on,
that's your homework for this month.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see you guys then. Bye.